real conversations, and some hard truths. Gangs, drugs, and guns. Giving a voice to those willing to sacrifice. We have stories that need to be told. We have lessons that need to be taught. Protect and serve. Welcome to The Quiet Professional. Hey everybody, welcome back. Nathan Romas with you. Today, we are going to be talking about the difference between management and leadership and developing the next generation. For that, I have Sean Quigley here. He is a leadership development specialist from Nighthawk Consulting. Sean spent 22 years in the U.S. Marine Corps. He fulfilled roles such as helicopter pilot, college instructor, strategic planner, and training coordinator, and was assigned duty stations both stateside and overseas. After retirement, Sean worked as a risk and crisis management consultant for Deloitte & Touche in the Cyber and Strategic Risk Division and has served a variety of clients from the Department of Defense, Transportation, and Commerce. In these roles, Sean interacted with many senior executive service members, coaching them to apply concepts and consider actions to best navigate their challenges. So welcome, Sean.
Thank you, Nathan. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good to go. I think we've had a conversation beforehand, which we just went way off in the distance talking about leadership and different stuff. So when we got kind of introduced, we had a great conversation, and we're here today to kind of expand on that. So I think it'll be some good stuff. Maybe to just start talking a bit about what got you into this. What I'm wondering is what got you into the leadership discussion, given your background, and did you ever think you'd be on this path?
Yeah. Whoa, that's a good question. No, I did not think I was going to be on this path. Nobody's ever asked me that before. I started, so when I went to college, I went to the U.S. Naval Academy. And one of the things I heard there, I was told is, hey, this is a leadership laboratory. And at the time, I didn't know what that meant. And it didn't really matter to me a whole lot. But very briefly, the way things work there is, yes, there's real commissioned naval officers and Marine Corps officers who run the place. They're responsible. But the midshipmen, the students, are organized in a military hierarchy in each class, and then all the students form a single, what we call brigade of midshipmen.
Okay.
So the students kind of run the school, but there's really adults in charge, if you will. But students are therefore, as you go from being a freshman to a sophomore to a junior to a senior, you get greater and greater levels of responsibility and opportunities to exercise your leadership.
Okay.
As you make your way up, you also observe a lot of different leadership styles, which it never occurred to me that there was such a thing as a leadership style. But a metaphor that was shared with me early on was, hey, listen, Quigley, as you make your way through here, you fill up your good leadership bag and your bad leadership bag. And I thought, at the time, what's he even talking about? Well, it took me a little while, but I started realizing, oh, yes, that's a good leadership thing I want to do. And so I put it in this bag. Or that's a bad leadership thing that I don't want to do. So I put it in the other bag. And I just kind of filled those bags up as we went. Well, it's a leadership laboratory because we're not getting shot at. There's really nothing dangerous we're doing. We're not concerned about lives. We will be very shortly once we graduate.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's that controlled, fail-safe environment. So you can kind of try things out. And that's the laboratory piece of it. So that's why I started getting really interested in it. Of course, the Marine Corps is, fancies themselves a leadership beacon, if you will.
Yeah. Okay.
And we teach I don't want to say a particular style, but there's definitely a culture of leadership that's focused on accomplishing the mission and taking care of our Marines.
I think culture is a good word.
Yeah.
We'll come back to culture, or we'll talk about it a bit later too. But yeah, that's very good point.
Super. And I didn't feel that culture at the Naval Academy, but in the Marine Corps, it was a different thing. And I started taking it for granted because as you ascend in rank, the same thing happens that happened as a student at the Naval Academy. You get, and it probably happens in law enforcement too, as you go from being a patrol officer to a sergeant to perhaps a lieutenant, and then maybe even a captain type thing. Your responsibilities change, your leadership requirements change, but you develop in the way you are a leader, right?
Yeah.
We're taught things along the way, leadership traits and principles, and we're given the opportunity to exercise them, to observe them from others, to exercise them ourselves, and be evaluated, because everybody fancies themselves a leader in the Marine Corps. So we're always, hey, I think Sergeant Romas is shit hot, and he needs to be the next squad leader.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, why do you think Romas is so shit hot? Well, then we have myself and another lieutenant have that back and forth about what I've observed and why I think you were the guy. Those sorts of conversations really got my head, things turning inside. And so as I made my way through my career, I'm always observing and watching others and their styles and their traits and what they do and what works and what doesn't, and talking to subordinates about, what they value, even though it maybe didn't always have something to do with the mission. It was kind of these notes I'm taking in the margins, if you will, of my experience. And then when I leave when I retire from the Marine Corps and I joined Deloitte, which is 3 times as big as the Marine Corps, 300 something thousand people worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
I found, this is where I started really learning that culture was a thing, and leader, and this is where I started getting a handle on the difference in leadership and management that I know we're going to talk about. Unfortunately, there's a lot of organizations in the world, and I just happen to see it there, that don't necessarily invest in, and certainly don't have the luxury that the Marine Corps does, or the military, of getting people when they're still in their formative years to teach and train and groom them. Corporate America, Canada, the rest of the world, you may bounce from job to job to job, different cultures, different requirements, different attitudes, different leaders, different managers. And so you get this kind of mishmash of stuff, and it's really hard to sort things out. Whereas the Marine Corps and the military kind of keep you on the same path. So,
if I could jump in there too, I think the way you're describing it is like, you don't ever, if you're bouncing around all the time, and I see this in the policing world, it's like if you go from job to job every year, it's like, what kind of person are you becoming? Because you're constantly changing the environment you're in, the people that you answer to, or the people you work with, like your peer groups. But when you're the way you're describing the Marines and how you kind of have a trajectory, it's like, your environment, the person that you're kind of becoming. So it's maybe the consistency is missing on one side of things, where you have it on the other, and it lets you kind of grow into knowing who you're going to be or who you want to be. And then, like you're saying, you can do all these exercises, and you have that consistent presence, that consistent theme in your leadership style as you go along. So that's kind of a good compare and contrast, the way you're describing.
I like that. Because number one, I think you're right. Number two, it hadn't necessarily occurred to me until we were talking about it, how that mishmash occurs, and how, if you jump from department to department to municipality, etc., in a way, you're going to have to kind of start over each time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're gonna get new mentors. You're gonna have new examples. In some cases, you're going to be expected to hit the ground running. In others, you may get a little warm up. But yeah, you have to, in a way, it's harder in that situation, because you got to be a little more grounded and solid in your leadership mindset. Whereas part of the beauty of that trajectory in the Marine Corps is you're kind of always trying things out, even as a commanding officer.
Yep.
you're probably really still kind of trying things out, even though you've had years to formulate what you're going to do when you are the boss, you know?
No day is the same.
No day is the same.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. And that, I think, that's a challenge for a lot of people. Because I'm now doing what I'm doing now and learning about other people's motivations, you get a kind of certain set of personalities in the Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. We're kind of similar. I imagine you see the same thing in policing and law enforcement. You get this it's kind of this block of society. And then when you leave it, you realize, whoa, everybody's not like us.
Yeah.
That was the hardest thing to handle for me.
Okay. Well, you know what? I was going to say one thing, but I'm going to go to a different thing.
Okay.
There's so much to go on here. There's so much to talk about. Maybe I'll start with this. So for yourself, just staying on the topic of you was, when you go from the military to the civilian world, and you're kind of the last thing you mentioned there, that did you find that a lot of the skills were transferable, especially within the leadership realm? Like, what was that like for you when you went out and then you're saying, wow, these people are not the same in whatever way that you're seeing it. Mm-hmm. But did you find those leadership skills kind of translated across different industries, different sectors? Whoever you've worked with a few different departments, and those are, there's some big personalities in those. So what's it like when you get that experience to go out there and now you're trying to talk to civilians? Maybe it's a little less regimental, a little less rigid. Mm-hmm. But what was your experience kind of going from military to the civilian side?
Yeah. You got a lot of questions in there. Let's focus first on that initial transition. The consulting work Deloitte does is project based. So it's typically kind of, finite blocks of time. A customer hires us to do a particular thing for a particular period of time at a particular price.
Okay.
So it's not like I go to work for Deloitte and I then have the same customer for the next 20 years and I retire. It doesn't work like that. Mm-hmm. I'm a Deloitte employee, but I do 6 months working for a DoD customer, and then 3 months working for a commerce customer, and then 2 years working for the Federal Aviation Administration or something. Okay. What I saw was, in that transition, I discovered quickly that I had been spoiled in the Marine Corps because we all have a foundation. Mm-hmm. We all the Marines went to boot camp. All the officers went to officer candidate school and the basic school. So we all have this exact same foundation. And in the Marine Corps, we like to say, every Marine's a rifleman, every Marine's a rifle platoon commander. So we're inculcated with the same values, the same principles, the same sort of, in a way, sense of right and wrong and how to do things.
Yeah.
I moved to the private sector and I know all bets are off. It is not like that at all.
People from all over.
Oh yeah, people from all, and it's not their fault. Mm-hmm. I'm not casting blame in any way, but yes, people from all over with all sorts of different experiences, both training and education, and cultural and ethnic. Mm-hmm. People from all over the world. Deloitte's a global company. And I realized that I couldn't take the same sort of leadership template that I'd kind of been able to use with success everywhere I went in the Marine Corps and lay it over my first project at Deloitte.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It just didn't quite work that way anymore, because the ingredients, the people over whom I'm trying to lay this template don't have the same sort of foundation.
Yeah.
And so you can't really expect it to work. Fortunately, one of my first projects was a Department of Defense customer, and many of the people there were still some in uniform. Many of the government civilians were retired military, so they were veterans, so they got some of it. And then many of the contractors who were there, I was a contractor technically, they were also former military. So that little piece was kind of in between. Once I left defense and went to commerce, oh man, finding a veteran there was a hard thing to do. And there the template really didn't work. So I think that foundation allows you to develop a template because everybody started at the same point, regardless of how they move. We like to say, once a Marine, always a Marine.
I think that brings up a good, maybe a good segue as well into a little bit of discussion I've had on this podcast with other guests about EDI or DEI and like all that stuff. And when you talk about, I had Chief of Police here on, and I was asking about these things like, what are we looking for in that? Because I know there's lots of criticisms of it. I have lots of criticisms of it. But I think a lot of the narratives for that get hijacked, and we have some bad actors doing things with it. But one of the things that he brought up that was a good answer, I thought was a good point, was talking about, when you're framing it, like we have certain people that fit this box, and you can have a lot of variation in that box.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, we all might tend to kind of lean a certain way or think a certain way. So we just get kind of pigeonholed as like a certain type of person, stereotype maybe.
Sure.
But what we're looking for nowadays, especially with how fast policing changes or the world, so even in commerce or whatever's going on in government, culture, the big changes going on, we're looking for different ideas. So when you bring in the people from the different backgrounds, right, whether it's cultural, racial, just experiences, university, not university, whatever that might be, we're trying to kind of grab the biggest group we can, so that we get, some change. We can have the different opinions, the different views on certain issues. So yeah, I like how you kind of framed that with like, we have this one box, but when you go into the civilian world, it's not that. So have we always been stuck in a certain way thinking about this? I mean, hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. And now we're starting to see, hey, we do have to kind of change some things. The world's different out there, so we have to adapt faster. So that was one of the things that just kind of got me thinking a totally different track on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like that analogy.
That's a lot to unpack. That's a lot to unpack, and it's something I hadn't really thought of before. That the emphasis, and I think emphasis is a fair word, on diversity, equity, and inclusion, if you will. In a way, I don't know if it ignores the fact that, because as you said, for hundreds of years, for thousands of years, we've kind of done it this way. And I think for hundreds of years, for thousands of years, we've lived in these very tribal organizations, societies.
Yeah.
Depending on who you read, for thousands of years, the typical tribal unit was about 150 people. That just seemed to be about the right size that worked, and they were very insular. The Native Americans are a fabulous example of this. I think as migration and societies developed, we even saw it in the 20th century. I mean, kind of one of the things you and I were talking about before is, migration to the United States of America. People migrated as the Irish. They migrated as Italians, as Polish, and they kind of kept that identity.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the beauty of America is we fancy ourselves a melting pot, right? And all those people are welcome. But I think we're starting to, as America gets older, we break down some of those identities. And I don't know if that has grown to concern people or not, But I've often wondered if that's where the DEI thing came from, to, in a way, reinforce some of those dividing lines that keep us tied to those cultures and ethnicities. Because otherwise, we just over time all kind of become Irish, Filipino, African, Polish Americans, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we say things like, "Oh, I'm an Irish American," or "I'm a African American." Or, well, how many generations do you keep saying that?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, dude. I mean, honestly, right? I think I was telling you earlier, we've done some actual research on the history of my family. My ancestors on one side came from Ireland like 5 generations ago. I don't call myself an Irish American, right?
Well, I think for white people, it's like nobody. Well, I would say I don't come across that too much. But maybe it's more a U.S. thing.
Yeah.
But I always see with Black people, they just get labeled as African American. Like, how do you even know they're from Africa? They're born in other countries, other continents. But they just get labeled in a certain group,
right?
So that's why. And then that's where I get critical of the whole DEI stuff, where I'm like, we're just labeling people as something, but we're not supposed to be labeling them, or going on the immutable characteristics of a person, using that to kind of judge the book by the cover.
Yeah, great point.
But I don't want to get too far.
That's fine.
On that
That's fine. Close back. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be?
Because I could go for days talking about that specific topic. But you have a lot of good points in there. And you know what? Just kind of going back to the Marine side of things, where you're talking about, they have a culture there, and you can kind of develop yourself as a leader. And I've asked this I think it was on the podcast I did with Oakland McCullough. I asked him, do you think leaders are made? Is it just kind of more inborn characteristics? Is it a mix of the two? So I'm wondering, I want to get your opinion on this, because just based on our conversations and then what you're telling me here with your experience, where do you kind of fall in that, maybe that opinion of like, are there natural born leaders, or can you actually make a great leader? Someone who has absolutely none of the qualities, but maybe they just get like a certain life experience really kicks them in the ass. And they're like, wow, I need to change all this stuff. And then they do it somehow. What have you seen out there, and what's your opinion on that?
Man, there's a lot of debate about this. Boy, I mean, holy smokes. There's, if I can do this succinctly, I think there's a spectrum. I think there's a spectrum of everybody. But let's talk about people on the spectrum with leadership skills, that are born with leadership skills. And I shouldn't say skills. I should say a personality, a temperament that lends itself to being we'll call them a natural leader. So if we've got 2 ends of the spectrum, I think those folks fall in, let's say the center 75%. All right. And then there's the outliers on both ends. And the outliers on both ends are the people who are such fabulous natural born leaders that they don't need to develop their skills. Because I do believe there are leadership skills. And the people on the other end, their personality and temperament is so far the other way that trying to help them develop their leadership skills is going to be a waste of time. Because they're just never really going to take it on. This is my own theory. All right. Yeah. Everybody else in the middle, and who knows what that actual division is, but everybody else in the middle, I think, can be taught, trained, practice, read, learn, listen to podcasts, get thrown into workshops, and absolutely develop their skills.
Yeah.
So if I think you have to be born with a seed, but you can absolutely then nurture and water and fertilize that seed so that it grows into this fabulous leadership tree. Not everybody, but most people. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, totally. The word temperament, I haven't heard anybody use that yet, but I think that it actually that fits very well, because
I think it's real important.
It's such an all-encompassing word, and it's like, yeah, you not only do you maybe have to have the attitude and bring that like, hey, I do want to learn kind of motivation with you. Some people just don't care. And so, yeah, so that what I was kind of wondering is,
Yeah.
do you think you're talking about the spectrum of it, and it's like, so there are people in your mind that like they exist out there at the far end, they're the extreme of like, I can't be a leader. Like I can't be taught. I don't have that. I either don't care. I don't have the personality. I don't come with the attitude to do it. So I would tend to agree with you, but I just kind of wondered.
Hmm.
So yeah, there are these people at the extremes.
I think so, and I think that group tends to be, if we're talking about temperaments, we would call them phlegmatic. They're the folks who perhaps who just kind of don't care.
Mm-hmm.
They're real. They come across as being real apathetic. And they could be other temperaments too. I just use that one as an example. They don't want to be responsible for anyone else.
Yeah.
Because I think the number one most important thing in being a leader is that you selflessly put others' good before your own.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to do that, then you can't get past square one on leadership training. And so I think there are some people who, and at the risk of stereotyping, all right, we said we might talk, maybe talk about the generational stuff a little bit.
Yeah.
I picture I don't know, we'll say 23-year-old computer science genius, right? Who's so smart he can't hardly help himself. But he has a hard time opening a jar of pickles. Yet he can make the keyboard and that laptop do things that just don't make any sense to me at all.
Mm-hmm.
But he wants to walk around with his hoodie pulled over his head and his hand shoved in his pocket, slurping on his Monster.
Yeah.
And not talk to anybody.
And they're happy doing that, right? They're happy
doing it. Yes, and that's what they want out of life. And they don't want to lead anybody. They don't want to manage anything else. They don't want to get promoted to be the manager. They just want to do their thing and drink their Monster and, play some video games when they go home and maybe have other people in their life and maybe not. Okay, so horrible, right? We just created the stereotype, but that's kind of something I would, that's an example that pops into mind when I think, who do you know that doesn't want to be a leader? Well, maybe somebody like that.
And without giving any names away, because I don't want to get fired or nothing, but you know what? In my own experiences, you see this in chain of command all the time. I mean, there's people in chain of command that should not be there, and it makes you wonder, like, how did you get there? I'm going through the promotion process right now, and just I look at the process and what they look for, and I wonder when I see some people, how did they ever get through that?
Right.
So, but it's like, yeah, well, if you're not seeking out how to manage people, and I guess this will kind of lead us into the difference between management and leadership. Then what are you doing? And there was actually at the beginning of the promotion process, they sent out, I think it was an email, or maybe it was in one of the packages that they give you that explains like the things you got to do. But it basically stated, if you're chasing rank or salary, this isn't the place for you. But then there's other things in the process that tend to make me think like, well, if you're saying this here, though, I think you're only going to get that kind of person. So it'll be something I'll offer the critique later on after the process.
Yeah, I'll be curious.
I don't want to critique the process too much while I'm in it.
But, be careful.
It brings up that difference though between the real management and leadership. Like what are we? I think the two terms often get interchanged.
Absolutely.
People aren't really thinking like, when I say leadership, this person exhibited leadership. Is that really, or were they just doing their job, or were they doing something like, is it really helping anybody else, or is it just a resume padding exercise? So maybe that kind of leads into, when we talk about management and leadership, what's your view on this? The difference between it? I could go on forever, but I'm gonna let you talk. So
Yeah,
where do
I'm
we
enjoying it.
where do we see the difference between the two? What's your experience with this? Either in the military or even in the civilian world. Where you come across
hmm
this. Do you see it more in the civilian world than maybe in the military?
Um, as I think about my time in the Marine Corps, and I was a helicopter pilot, so and then a staff officer, and we would use the word manage. We would talk about needing to manage, and here's what I think that the difference is, and there's probably folks that will hear this and say, "Oh no, Sean, I can't believe you simplified it that way." But I think very simply, we manage things, we lead people.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. If you want a simple, what is that, 6-word definition? I think that's kind of where you draw the line. But those lines, those are big, fat, gushy lines, and they overlap. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There are absolute, because even in the military, there are some things that I'm going to say are a business, because we have to buy things, we have to spend money, we have to expend those resources in our training and professional development. So there are budgets that we have to manage. We aren't leading the budget; we're managing the budget. As an example, a ground supply officer is responsible for everything in his warehouse. He's got to manage that inventory.
Mm-hmm.
He may be leading the Marines who help him run the warehouse, but he's managing the inventory. All right. So those, I think that's the simplest line to draw between the two. And I think our personalities, types, and temperaments, again, we'll use the word, that lend themselves to management rather than leadership.
Yeah.
And I think you can be, and in many roles, particularly as you ascend in policing, let's say you successfully navigate the process, and you become a sergeant or a lieutenant or a captain. Your responsibilities will change, and you will find that I'm still managing some things, but now I got this leadership requirement too. And it used to just be the guys on my shift, but now it's 2 shifts, and now it's 3 precincts, and those responsibilities become greater. And I think there's people who as they progress, as they ascend, they tend to be more comfortable going down the leadership track or the management track.
All right. Yeah.
Because the higher you ascend in an organization, the less management of things you have to do, and the more leading of people are required. Because now you have people who are managing all those things.
Yeah. Yeah. You're delegating, or should be delegating.
Exactly. And that's their job. And that used to be your job. Right. Mm-hmm. But you've moved beyond that. Now you lead the people that manage those making the widgets.
Yeah.
Whatever the case may be.
Yeah. I like how you broke it down, because mine might be a little more complicated. So I'm going to make it more complicated.
Okay. Do it.
But I'll have to start stealing the way you said it. So I always wondered about this, and this is, again, back to my conversation with Oak, and I'll have to get him back on to talk about this, because then we could compare and contrast both your answers.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if we really got enough time to get into this whole topic, so we'll do it here. Manipulation versus motivation. And when we're talking management versus leadership, that's how I kind of saw some of I'll say the bad side of it, like what it could be. Because there's good management. But
absolutely.
When we're just talking about like what we're talking about here, where how do we make things better? How do we make better people, better processes? I always wondered about the difference between the manipulation and motivation, and kind of the intention that people have. So when you're saying management, if somebody thinks like, they're not thinking like you were saying, I'm just managing things, but I have to lead people. I feel like if they think they just have to manage people, then it becomes manipulation. rather than motivation. I was looking up the definitions of this, so people wonder what I do in my off time. This is the things I look up. My head's like always spinning, and I just go off on these weird things I'm looking up. So manipulation focuses on work only. Motivation focuses on work and the people. And some of the words kind of associated to the two, manipulation is pride. So it's almost like it's a lot of more self-fulfilling. You're trying to manipulate things so that either, I don't know, you get the glory, or you can say, I did this, or I, made people do that. Motivation is about empowerment. So again, like you were saying earlier, it's about others. It's about doing things for other people, letting them kind of rise to the occasion. You're there to help them. But the word attitude was in there. So kind of like temperament. Manipulation was on control, whereas motivation's on influence. And it's just about getting people to work toward a common goal. It's like, hey, this is going to help all of us. We'll all be better off for it. Whereas management, I think when people use that term, I don't want to say it's becoming a dirty term or a bad term in my mind, but lately I've seen a lot of bad stuff. So, but I think it's about that control. It's like, I'm either it's CYA, right? I'm not going to let people do something because I don't want to answer to the critique and criticism. Or, I'm afraid I'm going to get in shit because someone else screws up, and then I'm going to get blamed for it. So I just say no, right? Like those kind of managers who can't lead, they just say no to things because they just don't want to do it. It's like, not good answers, right?
Yeah.
So, that's kind of where I've always thought of it. So clearly my definition was very complicated compared to the one you gave. I like how you broke it down a bit more and simplified it. So,
sure.
But that manipulation versus motivation has always kind of come to my mind when I think about how people really get the leadership aspect of things, and like, why are you doing the things you're doing? Is it for the right reasons? So that kind of stuff. So that's where my thoughts are on that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have anything on that, the manipulation and motivation stuff.
There's a module in a training session I like to do when we talk about leadership versus management, and I draw leadership on the board and management on the board, and then I draw a line between the two, and I ask the class to help me with words that fall under each.
Okay.
And I would absolutely agree that it would be. It's not perfect. It's not a perfect model, but just to get kind of the brain juices flowing. Yeah, I'd put motivation under leadership and manipulation under management every day of the week, probably.
Yeah.
And part of that is because I think manager as a word, I'm kind of a word nerd. Manager as a word is one of the few things that is both a descriptor. It's both a title and a level in many organizations.
Yeah.
So not only are you the manager, but you've been promoted to manager, right? I may get promoted to be the principal, or promoted to be a partner, but I'm not partnering.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When you're promoted to be the manager, now you got to manage. I'm not promoted to leader. I'm promoted to partner, but I have to be a leader. Okay. So manager ends up carrying this kind of dirty connotation.
Yeah.
How often do people say, "Oh, I love my manager"? Not very often, right? There's so much in the literature about people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad managers. And I think that's because, and last thing before we get to manipulation and motivation, managers tend to be backward looking. Managers are responsible for results and what's happened in the past to help predict the future. Whereas leaders, if I'm leading, even if it's a team of managers, I'm looking to the future. Where is the work that we've done? Where is that going to take us? That's my job to decide where it's going to take us. the goals we want to achieve, how we're going to achieve those goals, what happens after that. They all look to me for the strategic plan because they got their head down doing things in the past and in the moment. That's why you get promoted out of that. That's why you ascend out of that, because hopefully somebody recognizes that that's what you're doing. In order to achieve those things, though, the managers have to be manipulative.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say have to be, but in many cases they revert to it because their success is measured on those results. And many times the manager used to be one of the technicians, so a level below. And then they got promoted to be the manager. So they know how to do the job. And they may very well know how to do the job better than the people who are doing it now. So they get sucked down in, and then they end up manipulating those. Whereas they're supposed to be up top managing things, they get sucked down in, they lose their perspective, and then their subordinates, the team they're supposed to be leading, says, well, you know what? If I don't want to do it, I'll just kind of slack off, and I know Nathan will come down here and do it for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Or I don't have to try real hard. I don't have to get it right, because if I get it wrong, Nathan will just come fix it. Whereas the good manager will say, hey, Nathan, we didn't quite hit the mark this month. I really want to hit the mark next month. What do you think? I'm giving you ownership now. What do you think we need to do to get there? I don't even give you my ideas. I don't want to taint what you say. I want to give you ownership of how to fix the thing that's not right. Because if I just go in there and fix it, I'm manipulating.
Yeah.
If I give you the option, now I'm motivating, because you come out and say, hey, thanks for asking, Sean. Here's what I think we should do. I don't think that particular thing's working. What if we tried this? I've been thinking about it, and we did this, and we did that, and then we switched this up. What do you think? I'd say, Nathan, that sounds like a great plan. Let's make it work. We'll give it a shot. Now you own it, and you're motivated to do the thing. And I've just taken you from being down here to being up here.
I think that's very hard for people to do, most people, because
oh yeah,
I would say the majority of people, I almost want to say that you don't see, leadership isn't something you see in the majority of instances, but a lot of people will tell you what you're doing wrong, or criticize, or do the management side of things. People could do that all day. The whole giving people kind of that, you're letting go of some stuff and saying, hey, what's your idea? I won't. What's the word I was going to use? I want to say it's not only is it hard for people to do that, but to say I don't know, or I think people have a hard time with that, and that's part of that whole hey, what's your idea? It's kind of saying, it might be saying I don't know. Maybe it's 50-50. I don't know, but I might have an idea, but I kind of want to get your opinion. So I think that's a huge part of it, having humility. There's two things that I don't see a lot of on the management side of things, right? If you're just doing that, you don't have the humility to say I don't know. And I think that's a massive detriment. If you've got people that are your subordinates, that's a recipe for disaster. Your team's not ever gonna uplift. It's not gonna accelerate or be that forward thinking team. It's just a lot of the stuff I see. If we use policing as an example, not specifically my situation, but just policing as an example. I've said this before, we always seem to be chasing one crisis to the next. There's a lot of bureaucracy in this, and obviously it comes into politics because we can't set our own laws as police.
Sure.
But it's hard to it's hard to find people who are forward thinking, but when you do find those people, how do you empower them to get everybody else on track and going in the same way? Because I don't think it's necessarily a rank thing with policing side of it. I don't know what the military experience would be like with this. I think it might be harder to do there than even in policing. But how would you get somebody who is forward thinking, the visionary, and regardless of rank, how do you empower that person to go and lead, right? Lead within the organization. I think it's a hard thing that we come across right now, and it's definitely missing because I think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people right now, with all the narratives out there, like DEI, I think scares a lot of people with saying anything. Really, we can't have critical conversations. We are just putting people in spots that they're not qualified for or didn't get on merit. So people are afraid to call things out. We just promote managers, not leaders. So I think there's a lot of stuff to this, but yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
manipulation, motivation, the management versus leadership, all very critical conversations. I think at this time, especially with all the things going on in the world.
Yeah. Your question about how do you enable or empower that leader you identify who may still be in I'm going to say a junior position.
Mm-hmm.
Is that about right?
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
That's a difficult thing to do because if you are the leader who's able to provide that empowerment, you have to be, I'm going to say, courageous enough to take the risk
Mm-hmm.
that what you're doing perhaps is promoting that individual ahead of his peers or her peers and giving them responsibility that others may look left and right and say, hey, this is bullshit. Why is he getting, why does, well, chances are that if that individual has demonstrated something to you, he's also probably demonstrated something to his colleagues and coworkers.
Yeah.
And they probably recognize that individual as, ooh, bright shining star. How he or she makes their way from there to the next step, I think that can be very precarious because if they do it and do it on the backs of others, that's going to be very obvious to everybody. And then when you try and empower them, nobody's going to buy it.
Yeah.
And they're going to resent it. I would, because what you're talking about is kind of a unique situation. My suggestion would be probably to, and this is something that a lot of organizations don't do well, is professionally develop their people strategically.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
One of the best conversations I had, one of the prospects for my consulting company, I got a call. I actually got a ping on LinkedIn out of the blue from the CEO of a local facility engineering firm. He happens to be a Naval Academy grad, happens to be a retired Navy captain. And he said, hey, I'm new in this role as CEO. There's about 50 engineers here. Most of them have been here for 15 years or more. They're really good at what they do, but they don't know shit about leading people.
Yeah.
And I know myself and the 3 senior vice presidents, we're only here for another 5 years and we're going to retire. I want to start thinking now about identifying the 4 to 5 that probably have something that is worth further developing and putting them through some sort of program so they can ascend and take over for us. And I thought, holy smokes, I wish every organization thought like you do, because that doesn't happen.
That is a very interesting way of putting it. I don't think I've ever heard someone say it like that in law enforcement. And I've had conversations with people across the board, Canada, US, in other countries.
Yep.
I've never heard anybody say that. And that is surprising considering,
Really?
the kind of people you want to put into the positions, the leadership development, like the strategic part of it is totally missing. In my experience, I imagine it's missing for most industries. Like a lot of people aren't thinking that, hey, I've got 5 years left. It's like maybe they'll think about it in the last year, and then they're thinking about promoting their buddy or somebody, and you're
Yeah.
like, well, your buddy's not the right person for this job, so why are we talking about them? Um, yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard that come up. That's very unique.
In the business world, we use the term succession plan.
Mhm.
Who's going to take over for you, right? Because you're only going to be there for so long. And in the small business world, most small business owners, yeah, they need a job, but ideally they're building a business that they want to turn around and sell so that they can either go on to the next thing and build another one, or just go fishing and play golf,
Mhm.
or play with their grandkids or whatever. But if they're going to do that, they have to have a succession plan. Who's going to take over for them? And the companies that, and there's a lot of them that have been in business for years, 5, 10 years, they look like they're killing it. Yeah, well, the boss is, he's the duck. Everything above the water looks like he's good. Underneath, he's paddling like a crazy son of a bitch to just try and keep his head above water. He's not thinking about what comes next. Where do I take this? And if you don't work your people into that plan, then it doesn't matter how good your product is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think.
Yeah. That kind of brings me, we will talk a little bit about the culture. And, when we get on this topic, on X or on some of those like social media, I always see like those pictures will pop up. It's like, this is a picture of, it's a guy who's kind of like missing a bunch of puzzle pieces from him, like his silhouette.
Okay.
And he's like handing one to, looks like a kid or something, right? And
Yeah.
it's like you're giving the pieces away. It has to do with leadership. So when you're saying earlier, kind of the leadership side of things is you're giving more away than you're kind of receiving.
Yes.
I want to kind of explore that a little bit and just talk about the type of person that, and then the culture around that. Like, what do we need to do to create more of these people? And what type of person, I guess, do you see as the person who can give more away than they receive? Is there, and for me, I kind of bring in like the personal side of stuff. So when I'm looking at like, if it's military, law enforcement, anyone that has that kind of structure, I think it's almost like you have two worlds. You've got your work life and you've got your personal life. And a lot of the times, the people I see that exhibit the leadership qualities that at least I think are the ones that people should aspire to have or emulate. As far as I know, because you never know what happens at people's homes, but as far as I know, they seem to have a good home life. They themselves, as a person, are, I want to say, more complete. Don't have, aren't bringing like a ton of baggage with them. They seem to be just more, what do you say, I don't want to say stable, but I can't think of a different word right now. But they just seem to be, they've got things squared away in their personal life. So when they come into work, now I can give things away freely because I'm happy with what I've accomplished. I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm not looking for anything in particular, per se. Like, yeah, it'd be nice to get promoted, or yeah, it'd be nice to get this accolade or something. But if I don't get it, oh well. Like I'm not crying about it. I'm not, I'm not going to die. But I'm very happy in my personal life. But then you see the flip side, like people who only show those management, the management side of things, but don't have the leadership. If you look at them critically as a person, you can see things that you're like, okay, maybe they're not as squared away in their own, life or with themselves. So, what would be kind of your take on that?
Yeah. So the question is, if he looks like he's got his shit together at work, you assume he's got his shit together everywhere, but you don't really know. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. If you haven't read Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules of Order, 12 Rules of Chaos? I can't remember the book.
I have the book over here somewhere. I can't see it from here. But yeah.
Okay. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
You know what I'm talking about? Okay. I'll call him my second favorite Canadian after you. I think his first, and it's been a little while since I've read it, but I think one of his first rules is get your own house in order first.
Yeah.
If you remember that. I think that's a great rule. I think it's a hard thing to do. And I think there's a lot of people who have a personality and a method of work that they don't necessarily also portray the same way at home. When my kids were little, I remember my wife would say things like, "Oh, Dad's going to go Marine on them." Because as Dad, I thought I was very different. I thought I was very different as a dad than I was as a Marine officer. Mm-hmm. And I think that there has to be a line drawn between your work persona and your home persona, because they're different environments and there's different needs from those people. There's certainly similarities and overlap, but I do think they have to be different. And I think one of the key things to get off on the right foot, like we said before, was that selfless service. And I think they apply in both. I think you have to be willing to put the welfare of others, whether it's your employees, your team, your C-suite, or your wife and kids and parents. You have to be able to put their welfare before your own. In the Marine Corps, as an officer, well, as a Marine, you're taught, hey, when you come back from the field, you clean your gear, you clean your weapon, you clean your gear, you clean yourself. In that order. The weapon comes first, your gear comes second, and then only then do you get to go take a shower, all right, and scrub all the filth off. As a Marine officer, those are still your priorities, except your Marines do all those things before you do them.
Yeah.
Their comfort is prioritized, and their well-being and welfare is prioritized before yours. I do the same things with my kids. And I do it in a very simple way. At the dinner table, for instance, everybody else fills their plate before Dad touches his.
Yeah.
Nobody really notices that until they start to get older. Dad, how come you're always last in line? Because you guys get to eat first. That's how it works. Especially
on the kids' side of things, it's like, man, I wish they would notice this now, right? Because when they learn it 20 years from now, you're like, you're a giant pain in the ass the whole way. I wish you would have got the lesson I was trying to teach you right now.
Yeah.
I wish you understood it right now.
That's a great point, though, because as a leader, you can't force the lesson.
Exactly.
They got to be ready for the lesson.
I think there's a lot of, it's showing consistency in the type of person you are.
Oh, absolutely.
Otherwise, you're almost acting either in one life or the other, in one area or the other. And as you do that, I mean, people are smart. You're working with adults. Some have quite the life experience. Like they can see things, they hear things, they can start to see the cracks. And if you're not doing the things that you're telling them to do, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Then they start to think you're a hypocrite, or they start calling that out either to you or to other people. So it's just, you start building these cracks in the foundation of what you're trying to build. But it's very much about consistency. So are you doing the things yourself that you're trying to tell others to do? Are you leading by example? And then once you get to that kind of place, then you can grow as a leader, your style, and you can give away more than you get, right? Like, because you're not glory seeking, you're not trying to get accolades. It's not about that. You see somebody needs help. I have the skills or the knowledge to help you, or at least offer some advice. Here you go. Here's all this stuff. Now run with it.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll give you some credit down the road, maybe not. But either way, you're like, I'm fine over here. Like, go off on your own and do your thing. Kind of grow up. So,
and it's going to come back to you.
Yes, it does.
If you're humble enough to let others go do that and seek the accolades and seek the credit and let them excel, let them learn. You already had your chance in the sun, right? You already had your chance in the spotlight. Let them learn from it now, reap the benefit, and they'll recognize that. They may not recognize it right then, but they'll recognize it later. Because otherwise, if you're seizing it, you end up being the guy that you were just talking about, that you see who already sit in those positions in the force, who got promoted beyond their capability.
Yes,
that's real, and that's not all that unusual. I think every organization's got. They're like, how in the world is he the whatever?
Yeah. You know what? We're just coming up to the end of our time. Man, the hour flew by.
That was fun.
Yeah, and you know what? I got a bunch of stuff in there that I wanted to make sure we did talk about. So
yeah, good.
Yeah, it was great conversation. I always kind of finish off with giving people the opportunity just at least say how people can find you and your work. So anywhere that people can connect with you or follow you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. I've got my own website. My business is called Nighthawk Consulting, and that's Nighthawk with a K at the beginning and the end. So night, like night on a horse, nighthawkconsulting.com. And they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm only on LinkedIn. I don't do Twitter. I don't do Instagram. I don't do or X. I'm sorry. I don't do Instagram. I don't do Facebook. But I'm on LinkedIn, Sean Sean Quigley, and there's a few others on there. But I know the handle, the actual URL is linked. I think it's linkedin.com/Sean Quigley 6, all one word.
Okay.
If they're looking to sort them out. And I think I've got, I can't remember if it's Washington, D.C. Metro or Virginia in there as the locale, but I know sometimes searching on LinkedIn is hard. So LinkedIn or nighthawkconsulting.com, that's the easiest way to find me. My email address, Sean, Sean, @nighthawkconsulting.com.
Cool. When I put up the episode, I will put all the links in the description as well.
Oh, super.
And cool. Maybe actually just before we do go, because you're in this realm of things, and you're talking about Jordan Peterson, do you have any recommended reading for people? I don't think I've ever asked that of a guest. So is there anything in particular that maybe you'd recommend for people, or any specific authors that really influenced you?
Yeah, absolutely. Part of what got me kind of moving on this plane, and some of my friends even now, other military guys call it leadership porn. But I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink's work.
Yeah.
And Extreme Ownership, I think really turned a lot of heads and made people realize, hey, maybe we're doing this wrong.
Yeah.
And what he's talked about in there isn't revolutionary. It's just revolutionary that somebody wrote it down. Mm-hmm. Frankly, I recognize many things in there that, that's how I was taught to do business, but nobody wrote it down. So, and his follow on the dichotomy of leadership, and I understand they got a brand new one coming too, that goes a little farther. I'd recommend any of those. I'm also, I'm a fan of Patrick Lencioni's work.
Okay.
The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and that stuff. And L. David Marquet, Turn the Ship Around, is really interesting read too. And as far as historical figures, Lewis and Clark are one of the most amazing leadership studies that exist, because they set off violating one of the tenets of leadership, which is unity of command, that you only have one individual who's the decision maker. But they launched and did the whole expedition and brought everybody home as co-leaders. And I think that's fascinating.
Okay.
And finally, Sir Ernest Shackleton, who's a famous Antarctic explorer from the turn of the century, 19th to 20th century. Yeah. He's a fabulous story. The story of his travels, his expeditions on the Endurance.
Okay.
Sir Ernest Shackleton. So how's that?
Yeah, no, that's good.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to start asking other people that. I don't know if I've ever got that in there. So yeah, no, I appreciate your time today, and
Yeah.
we'll chat here right away. So just hang
Okay.
tight.
All right. Very good. Thanks, Nathan.